go.
Yeah, right.
Gotta push it forward.
That's just what the company's saying.
Why do I think
Yeah.
so?
Move it about 10 minutes ago.
I'll move it for 25.
Can you get this down there?
How do you get it to me?
I don't need it.
I mean, we may have to be connections.
Who did it cost? Any card that?
Yeah, I know. Put that in your mind.
It's probably time. Yeah.
We're going to call the meeting to order now. Please join us with the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I don't trust you.
Item number 2, action on the minutes.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
So before we go any further, I'd like to ask the board if I could move 5.1 ahead in the agenda to address next.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. So 5.1 is the food pantry discussion, continued from past meetings. I just want to throw a couple things out there on this topic. First of all, it's been a hot topic over the last week, 2 weeks out in the public forum. I'm not a Facebook person, I'm not social media oriented, but it's my understanding it's been a hot topic on all of those different platforms and also just in the public forum in general. Overall, I think there's been a lot of misunderstandings on where the town stands, and I dare say where the food pantry stands. So tonight, hoping to not only address where the town is at and actually having a discussion with the selectmen on this topic, but also allow the food pantry an opportunity to say where their head is at as well. But before we kick that off, I just want to say I know that this is an emotional topic for some, and is quite frankly a hot topic. So please, while we have a discussion on this, if we can all be respectful to each other, the town will be respectful to the food pantry and those in the audience. If the audience and the food pantry can be respectful to the board, please. With that being said, I just want to give a quick recap. As you remember, we've been looking at the space at the rec center for the food pantry, that garage bay along the side. There's a couple of things that we looked at that needed to happen. One, we had to clean it out. Well, we have it cleaned out thanks to the rec director and some other efforts of the highway department. We can actually walk in there and it's all cleaned out. But in order for the food pantry to move in, we've been looking at the idea of having a standalone electrical meter put in so that they would have their own panel and they could run all of their own appliances and so forth, you know, their refrigerators and so forth, and receive their own individual bill. That has been problematic in the sense that we've met with an electrician, but we have not received the estimates back yet. We've had a really hard time getting electricians in there. Also, an update that would go along with the electrician is some lighting to make things a little more doable in there. The addition of some wall outlets for freezers and so forth. I was going to suggest to the board, because there was some talk by the food pantry, some heat pumps. At the old building, we have a pair of heat pumps that's in the old selectmen's room. I was going to suggest maybe that those be moved over into the space that they might be occupying, just to alleviate some cost there. And then the installation of the wall to separate the food pantry space from the rec department space. That's already been taken care of by the highway department, and it was minimal cost. It was like $400. So that wall being there, whether the food pantry goes in or not, I actually see it as beneficial just for organizational purposes anyway. So for tonight's discussion, what I'm hoping that we can talk about is the intention of the town and the food pantry regarding paying for all of these improvements. There's been discussion about a financial disclosure with the food pantry being a nonprofit. That financial disclosure focusing on just a simple revenue and expense report and a fund balance report, or something that shows that they're a nonprofit. And then a statement of how many Oxford residents the food pantry services. The manager has drafted a lease agreement just for the board to see and look at, and then it'll be presented to the food pantry as well. And there was some talk, and I'm not sure what the status is, and there was some donations that were offered, but that's for the food pantry to look at from other third parties. So with that being said, before we hit that, I just want to say, and I feel comfortable saying this with the board as well, the town of Oxford is happy to work with the food pantry. We are not looking to kick them out of any buildings. We are looking to work with them. And so what are the Board of Selectmen's thoughts on paying for some of these improvements? Is it, do we feel like, how do we want to approach that? One of the thoughts that was thrown out originally was that the food pantry would pay for the improvements needed, such as the electrical panel and so forth. What's the board think of that? Do we need to?
I think at the last meeting, we discussed this and everything else. It's my understanding, and I don't know if the rest of the board understood it too, that we would be taking care of the electricity. We'd build the wall, take care of, have the electrician come in, give us the estimate, and we'd set it up. And then they'd take it over from there. That's my understanding. I don't know if anybody else here on the board had the same, so.
I don't specifically remember that. I'm big on wanting to see a quote before I commit to spending taxpayer money on any improvements on any project. Not saying that I'm not committed to paying some of this, or even all of it, if the money is right, but I'm not gonna write a blank check with the taxpayers' money on a project we don't know how much it's gonna cost.
Mm-hmm.
So, splitting the electricity there, now you're gonna have 2 electric bills for the building, which if it's appropriate, it's appropriate. It's gonna cost more. You get 2 bills from CMP, you're gonna have a higher a higher electric bill total than you would if you leave it in one. I understand that in a lease, we have to come to an agreement on who pays the electric bill. If you split it, then the food pantry obviously would pay the electric bill. If you leave it together, then that should be worked into the lease. And whatever way works best for the food pantry and the taxpayers of Oxford, I'm in support of.
And on that note, we certainly didn't explore the idea as much with the one electrician we were able to talk to, is upgrading the panel at the rec center and just leaving it as 1 meter, and then potentially charging a quarterly or whatever, utility bill, kind of like what we do with the current office. It's $900 for every 6 months, I think it is, to help cover the cost of utilities and stuff.
So one of the questions I asked when we were discussing, and I asked, it was Sue that was in front of us when we were discussing, was can the food pantry afford to pay their own electric bill or to pay their own rent or whatever bills they end up having? I don't want them to go insolvent and bankrupt because they can't afford separate monthly bills like that. I think everybody would agree that we've had a good system set up in a not ideal location, and it's going to be improved where we're going. But we don't want to make it harder for anybody.
So where are we on, as far as them being treated as any other third party requesting funds?
In reference to, that's where this conversation of the financial disclosure and how many Oxford residents are serviced by the food pantry conversation came to light.
Right.
Much like the third-party policy that we have at budget time. So I know that those requests were made about that information. But one of the things that I had talked to a couple folks from the food pantry yesterday, I believe it was, and one of their requests to me specifically was, can we have a list of what the town wants and the expectations in writing, which I think is a fair conversation, but given the miscommunications that have happened, I wanted to make sure that this board had an opportunity to
Well, I
clearly tell
think
me.
at that meeting, we discussed, we were curious how many actual Oxford residents were part of the program. I mean, I didn't think that was an unusual question, but. What's that?
I didn't bring that information with me.
Okay, but I mean, that isn't that wouldn't be hard to come with, would it? Okay.
As far as the, I think the other improvements, I think what we talked to, please correct me if I'm wrong, but electricity, heat pump, lighting, the wall, but other than that, you folks were looking at being the ones that were gonna, like tables and things like that you needed, you
Yes.
folks were gonna just be taking care of that. So, I know it seems like we're treading water on this electricity thing, it's just we can't get a quote. So, barring that, it does kind of stall things.
How far out are we on it? I mean, to give you any idea?
Well, we met with him last week, he said he'd have something to us this week for this meeting, and
You didn't show.
we don't have it, so. And I don't think that it's anything that he's just busy.
Everybody's the same.
Yeah, everybody's busy, so. Would the board like me to revisit the idea of keeping it as one electric meter, or do we want to stick with the idea of 2 meters?
I mean, I guess we'd be curious what the cost difference is. I mean, are you sure of that, or is that? Yeah, I mean, you were saying that.
You're gonna have your basic fees on the CMP bill, and then
Right.
you're gonna have your usage. Your transfer or
I
whatever
mean,
it's
it
called.
don't seem so it would be
is all-
that hard to figure out, but we know what it's been lately, and we add them to it, we ought to be able to figure out how much more it's gonna cost us, correct?
In the past years, with the food pantry in the town office, they did not have their own electric bill.
Correct.
So I don't think that should be a point of contention, that,
Pay, but we don't have.
right, you pay, you have a
pay
lease,
monthly fee, right?
It's,
but it's not metered
What's
separately.
that?
You pay it like every 6 months, right?
Yes,
the
we
electric?
pay,
No, it's not metered.
No, it's $450 every 6 months. We give to the, they give us a bill and we pay that.
Okay. But I mean, going forward, we know what it costs us at the rec center now, correct? So I mean, it really wouldn't be too hard to figure out.
And we run 3 freezers, 3 small freezers,
Cool.
and 1 commercial cooler. That's what we run.
Yeah. I mean, it don't seem like it'd be hard to figure out.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't. And lights when we're there.
I
So,
mean,
right now, you would take an average of what the light bill is at the rec center, and then the first light bill you would, or wait until you get a couple, then you can estimate how much the cost is
right,
to
and save us
operate
the
on
money of
that.
having a new meter put on.
But right now, the electrician has been asked to give a quote on putting all the extra outlets in addition to a new meter, to look at a lighting system that would provide more light. That was requested when we were there last week by Sue, that the lighting was bad. And so we said we would include that also in an estimate to provide a better lighting system. And then also to rewire to move the heat pumps from the town office now and rewire them in that room. So the electrician is going to have a cost for all of that. And I think what Dana was talking about when we met last, about a month ago, was that we would look at the estimate to see what all of those costs are before we actually made a decision. That's how I recall it also. I recall that we said, yes, go ahead and we'll move forward to get this, but we wanted to see a quote first on what the electrical was going to be. And that was because when the pantry came the first time and asked to use that location, they offered to help pay for any costs. And that was when you three of you were there and Sue was there. And then the second time when Sue came by herself and she was asked about, helping out with expenses at that time, that was when Sue, who was alone at that time, said that they didn't have any money. So that's what we were looking at that's what I was assuming, is that they offered to pay some money towards the cost of the renovation. So, you know, because they offered, we wanted to see a cost of what the estimate was before we decided, because the town has, the town doesn't have money in an account to do anything that's not approved in the budget at town meeting. So whatever expenses, like including the $400 expense to putting in the wall, that has to come from the general fund money, which is taxpayer money, because we don't actually have a budgeted account of money for that. So when we actually met with Sue, we encouraged her to have the pantry at budget time submit a budget request for funding as a social service agency. And if you did that, just like Androscoggin Home Health or any of those other organizations, you have a total right to submit a request for funding like that. And we told her that she would just have to submit the financials and the number of residents served. So Adam and I thought that, and she said that she thought that would be a good idea, but when it comes time for the budget, you should do that, request funding just like any other organization. You may get it, you may not get it. It depends whether or not it goes through the budget, but you have the right to do that. So we suggested that she, you know, talk to your group and that you do that when the time comes.
Okay, can I say something? First of all, the only person that was there was Sue, so we cannot comment on what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what we have done in the past and what we have done at the current location. We're working with the town, hopefully, and with the town manager, to move forward. And that's why we asked in writing everything specific that you needed from us at any time, monthly, yearly, or whatever. And then we're gonna take it to our board. That's what we.
That's what we talked about yesterday. Yeah.
And that's the best way to do it, is to have it in writing.
That's right.
So,
Karen?
do I need to tell you that I live in Oxford?
Well, usually you identify your name.
Oh, I apologize.
So in
Yeah.
case somebody doesn't know
So,
you.
Karen
Okay.
Miller. So are we allowed, though, to ask for money from the town if we're a nonprofit?
And all of the agencies that apply for money from the town, I'm not gonna say all of them, but a good portion of them they're nonprofit organizations. It comes under the title of social service agencies. So the town has a policy that if you are requesting funds under that category, then you're given a copy of the policy. It's been that way for years. Other towns have that same policy. All you do is you provide a copy of your financial statement with your request, and you state how many residents are served in your organization. And usually what you see typically in that area is we serve a total of 100 people of a year. Of those 100, 25 are residents, or all of them are residents. It just shows, because usually when they ask for money, they base it on a percentage of the cost of everything, and they're asking for what they feel is a share per cost per person. So that's why sometimes they'll request 1,000, sometimes 10,000 or whatever, but it's based on the number of people that are served in that town. So yes, you can do that.
So is that what you mean by you would like a financial disclosure from us? Or is that
That's
you,
part of the application.
Yeah, it's part of the application.
for that purpose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I would suggest when you break your numbers down, and if you find that, you know, a third of the people that come to the food pantry are from Oxford, and a third are from Paris, and a third are from Norway, that you ask all three of the towns for money in that same fashion. I don't know what the other towns' policies are as far as giving money to nonprofits, but if you break it out percentage-wise, depending on where these people are coming from, this town generally gives some money towards some of the nonprofits that do good work. The other towns do as well, so it doesn't hurt to ask. I would suggest that any town that you serve people from, would be my recommendation.
Scott.
I just, in my past comments at meetings, I think there are some misnomers out there. Some of the taxpayers of the town of Oxford believe that, some of that have been brought up to me, that my concern with this is that you're not a department of the town. I am 110% in favor of the food pantry. You serve, but you're not a department of the town, so therefore, as a board, we have to be careful of how much money we spend. So that's why when we discuss this, that it be brought up that if you require funds, just like any other third-party request that we have, is that just follow that procedure and then it's above board. But to me, it's just like, some people actually thought that, you know, the town of Oxford this is, you're for the town of Oxford, but you're not a department of the town of Oxford. So that, I think that's a little, that some people had that a little bit confused and were like, why aren't you supporting them? And we're like, well, we are, but, you know, it's your tax money that we have to play, you know, we'll support you the best we can and
I have a question. Linda Booker, there. Pantry, there. Like I said, in the past, we paid rent. That's what we did. So this will be a different entity. We're going to be going into a different kind of a contract if we work with the town and move forward. Am I correct? Is this kind of?
Well, I think that's part of the discussion that we're having here is, would we want to continue with rent?
Yeah.
Or do we want to have a lease that has a cost or no cost, depending on how the utilities are, handled and so forth. So, like the sample lease I worked on, that I gave a copy of the board, it takes the approach that you guys are paying for your own utilities. And then the town would charge you $1 for a lease, for the time. Or another approach that we could certainly take is that the cost of the lease is the equivalent of like what we're doing now, the $450, what have you, to cover those utility costs. I think that's one way we can offset things. I think I explained to you, I think the lease is really important because it shows what the expectations of the town is and what your expectations are. And it also talks about things like if we need to go separate ways on how that would work as well, or how it gives an actual term for us to come back. I think and how many ever years, and it could be 3, 4, 5 years, whatever term of the lease, when we would sit back down and potentially renegotiate the terms of the lease. So we've got two different directions that we could go there.
Well, I think a lease would be, that seems like just cleaned it up an awful lot.
Mhm.
Well, I think it's important to have the lease because then it identifies the responsibilities of both parties, and there's no confusion.
That's the question.
Sure.
How does the town, or how does the board get to lease out a town facility without the vote of the people? Why doesn't this go back to the town for a vote? For all of it, for that matter. I mean, I did this before when we were here. That's why we have that policy and procedure for the third-party ones, is so it goes through the board, it goes through the budget committee, and then it goes to the townspeople. And they make the decision. I don't think of you or me as owning the rec building. I think the whole town owns the rec building. I don't know how you write a lease to something you don't own.
Okay.
Do you know, Lois, if they had town approval to lease the space in the old town office whenever the food pantry started there? Or
Nobody knew about it. I didn't know about it, or I'd ask the same question then, I'm sorry, but
I think we're more or less trying to continue what we've had, just in a different location. But I see your point, and I don't disagree with you. I think we've had it all along on town property, to go back and ask.
now what do you do about, if someone gets hurt on town property going to the food pantry? It's a separate entity, actually.
Again, I would say back to the town office, or like anybody getting hurt on town property, no matter what office they were going to, the town could potentially be responsible.
Correct, so I think that, I really think that's another point that should go back to these points should be made to and I'm not trying to not do it. I'm just trying to tell you that you've got to do it right, or it's not gonna be right. And you're gonna just get further in down the road. So I really think we need to,
In reading the lease, there is a section in the lease that does talk about the insurance. And the pantry would be required to provide their own insurance, submit a copy to the town. It has to name, the additional insured. That right there would cover any accidents or anything. The building is insured by the town because we own it, but because they're in it and leasing it, or whoever is leasing it, they would have to provide their own insurance. And that's covered quite clearly in the lease, so that would take care of that.
did that get covered by a lawyer? I mean,
What's
the
this
tort
lease?
laws don't say that.
So this lease that I'm presenting to them is a lease that I actually used in a previous town that I worked in with the same lawyer, which I did consult when I put this together this time, with the same conditions with a food pantry. So this is something that I've used before. The lawyer did look at it again. He feels that that's appropriate and covers us from a legal standpoint. So.
We have our own, Ann Bellwood, we have our own liability insurance, and we've carried it ever since we've been in the building site.
And that's probably what would be covered right here, but it spells it out so that if anybody has any questions. This lease is very familiar with what I'm used to seeing too on leasing property within a town building. And it's the only thing that an attorney has recommended is that a lease like this never be for any more than 2 years at a time, that it's extended by year to year after that. And you don't have to go to town meeting approval if you lease it for 1 or 2 years and then just renew after that. But we were always recommended, when we did it, longer than 3 years, it had to go for a town vote. So the way Adam has it drafted here is it would be leased on a year-to-year basis and renewed that way.
So, we're
No,
gonna.
so, have you got their financials?
No, we have not, but that's not any fault of their own. What that is that this, tonight, having this discussion and making an official request of them for those things, just so the air is clear. So that's actually what I was just going to ask the board, is moving forward from this point, so we can move this process forward in a clear manner. What would the Board of Selectmen like me to request of the food pantry, so that we can have it at potentially the next Selectmen's meeting? It'll also give them an opportunity to, I think you said you're having a food pantry board meeting?
Yes, on the 19th.
So they can present what the board's request is at their meeting to their folks, and then maybe we can reconvene at the next Selectmen's meeting and maybe make some decisions and hopefully have some quotes from an electrician and so forth at that time.
I think as long as they follow the third-party request, that any other third party has to submit, I'm good.
And look at the lease.
Yeah, and look, yeah.
I'm good with it. I got a motion if you want to.
But I have a question. If they're leasing, they're not being a third-party request, if they're leasing from the town. Am I correct?
Correct, they're, right, I would agree with you, they're leasing from the town, but I think that that's another piece that we need to talk about. The town would be we'd be installing those heat pumps over there and some other things. It is space. I think it's important for the town, and in talking to the auditor, it is important for the town to make sure that we are dealing with a nonprofit that, is in good legal standing. So, either some sort of a nonprofit statement or some sort of a financial statement or what have you. But some board members have asked for the financial statement as well, which is one of the reasons it's coming up in conversation. So.
I think it's important to have the financial statement. I think it's also important to know the number of residents that the food pantry actually serves. Some questions have been brought to some of us. Some people have thought that the food pantry only serves residents of Oxford, but that's not the case. But they've thought that anyone can go in any food pantry in the state, whether you live in that town or not. So that had to be clarified to some people. But, so that's why, like with this third-party request, when they ask, when they send their statements in, they'll say like, we serve X amount of people, so many are from these different towns. So I think it's important to know that number so that people know that. Because the other part of that is, well, then if we're serving other towns, why is it just Oxford taxpayers that are paying for this? So we have to be able to answer those questions so that everybody has the correct answer and knows what's being done is what can be done.
I think part of that, Sharon, is that we have a lot of our people that go to Norway and South Paris, and they do not contact us. I mean, because they can go to as many food pantries in a day as they can
Mhm.
get to.
We all go by Good Shepherd's rule.
Yeah, so, you know, South Paris has never called us and said, you know, we're servicing X amount of your people, we would like you to kick in. So it's just always been kind of a mutual thing. I get it that, you know, it's difficult, but it's just, that's just the way it is.
Well, the food pantry is on the map now, I think. So it probably would be a good idea to have this information on the demographics. How many people reserve a month?
Colby?
How many people do you serve not every week, but every other Thursday? How many?
Today we had 37 that we loaded into the vehicles, but that's just the person that
Right.
signs for it.
Picked up.
Some of these people have 10 people in their families, some people have 4 people, some people have 1. We had 5 new families today
Yeah.
that came through.
Well, that's what I meant. just
Yes,
families,
yes.
yeah.
So of the families that you had come today, do you know off the top of your head, say, for instance, how many were from Oxford and how many were from other towns? That's how the breakdown would be.
I think there's one Oxford.
Yeah, we had 2 from Hebron.
Yeah.
And the rest were from Oxford.
Okay.
I know, a question that I had that I think was maybe, I just didn't understand it. If we take in monies from anybody that's supporting us, is that going to the general fund? Or are we still keeping that in our
They don't have anything to do with
separate?
our
We don't.
funds. They
No,
don't-
but that's what's out there, is what I'm saying. People.
No, whatever you receive for donations is your money.
And fundraising.
It's
whatnot,
not part of
yes.
the town's
Okay.
money, and vice versa.
Because that's what, you know, I had heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I think where some of the public confusion, if I may, on that came from was that if there was money donated to the food pantry, that some of that money could potentially be used to help pay for the upfit,
Oh, well, yeah.
you know, but that would be a food pantry decision.
Right, okay,
So-
yeah, thank you.
And
To my knowledge, we have never received any money per se from the town. We have never requested any money from the town. Only thing that we have is the space. And then we've paid the town
the
rent
rent.
for that.
Now you're,
Yeah, Lois.
okay, you're in good standing with the IRS with the non-profit part, right?
As I know, yeah.
Because you'll have to, I think we should go back at least 3 years, and I would like to, you would have those certificates on, they must give you a certificate, right?
What do you get, Linda, from the,
I just
For the-
send the information to the accountant.
yeah, and
I
then,
don't get anything.
What does this have to do with the
Well,
good standing of the pantry?
What's that?
Why would that have any good?
Well, whether we're leasing to, if we're leasing to a nonprofit,
And they've
It's a
been
town.
leasing to them for 20 years.
okay, but that's neither here nor there. We do a lot of things wrong, Baldy, here.
That's your opinion.
Yeah, right. Anyway, and, so if we're not a nonprofit, then we're leasing to a public entity, which is no different than the local bar and grill. So, I don't really think that's what we want in one of our buildings. So as long as you've got, you or the board have all the paperwork that says they're a nonprofit, that they're going to live by this lease, maybe you can get away with not talking to the general people and having a vote on it, but I still think it should go to a vote of the town. And I'm not saying they're gonna vote against it. In fact, they'd probably vote for it, but
And
We fill out a form every year, corporation, form, and we're listed as a nonprofit.
Yeah. And I was gonna ask you, Colby, because I think you would know. We wouldn't be allowed to, receive government food from Good Shepherd, would we, if we weren't in good standing with that nonprofit?
You're right.
Thank you.
So, just to circle back so we can move things along, what does the board want me to request from the food pantry for the next meeting so we can hopefully have a quote and get the ball rolling here? Do we want a financial disclosure or some sort of a nonprofit statement? That's a question still in my mind. And then I know we want the number of people serviced and the number of people serviced from Oxford. I'm thinking over the course of a year if that's possible. And then if we have the cost of what it's gonna take to upfit this, I'll have two options for the board. How about for the next meeting? One lease that is for $1, they pay their own utilities, and then potentially another lease that is the cost of the installation of whatever we need to install, kind of broken up over the course of the lease for the cost. Do those sound like good options, or thoughts?
Did you want it as a motion, or you just?
I think it would be good this time to do a motion for what we want, so that it is specific,
I'd go with that as a motion, what you just said.
which is,
A financial statement,
Correct.
something stating that they are a nonprofit, and number of Oxford residents and total residents served,
Lease,
and the lease, the two options.
the lease and the, but you said one more thing.
Quote, electrical quote.
Yeah, the quote.
I'll second that for discussion.
discussion.
Linda, is that workable
Forgot what I was
for
gonna say now.
you folks?
Oh, I know, your financial statement, tell us exactly what you're looking for, that's what I said, that's why we came tonight, to work with the
So,
town.
I'll tell you what, my opinion, again, I don't know how much money the food pantry has, and I really personally don't care. I have no problem donating to the food pantry every year, we spend a lot of money at the golf tournament, different things. So, depending on what this quote comes back,
Yeah.
to do all this work, if we're gonna go forward and do all this work, and say it's $20,000. Is the food pantry going to ask the town, come to the board, and go through the request for a nonprofit for the town to pay all that? Or would there be a portion of that that the food pantry would be interested in covering?
It would depend on the amount of,
So,
think
I don't
that's
want it
what
to
we're all going
be-
back to.
I don't want it to be, personally, I don't want
No, I
to dictate to the
understand.
food pantry terms that
Mhm.
aren't gonna work.
Well,
At
that's
the
why I
same
said if
time-
we got a quote, I mean,
Yeah.
At the same time, I do want it to be a negotiation that if it is a quote of that type of amount of money, that we can discuss
Yes,
who's gonna pay for it and how.
yes.
I'm good.
It all works on the quote and what you, if we can abide by what your requirements are.
Other board members? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed?
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. have any other questions before we move on?
I can't hear you.
Oh, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't, sorry.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, public comment. Please state your name and the town that you are from for the record if you want to speak. Joyce.
I just want to say that this is a wonderful space. This is really, you know, it's really great at advertising. It's a nice little ceiling, it's small, and we can hear everything. Speak louder, speak louder. I can understand it, this is wonderful.
Thank you, Joyce.
Welcome to this, really nice, it's very nice.
Other comments? Sue.
I'm Sue Parsons, I'm from Otisfield. I wrote a scathing letter in the paper about this group, especially Mr. Dillingham. I was not misunderstood, I was misinformed. I was absolutely, positively misinformed. It was from a dear friend of mine, but I am sorry. The next day I got up and I went in the newspapers, went up to the library, I went back, I found out what you people had donated to them. I can't go into everything because, but I will tell you, as of Tuesday afternoon, I'm not mentioning any names, as of Tuesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I got a call for me to get a hold of Howie Monday to find out about the Legion Hall, because I was told, the church was told, I was told, they were to be out of that place Thursday. There was no mistaking or nothing. I was told, I begged them, I begged the person, no, call Ann Bellwood and have, get Howie numbers. I said, no, I'm not going to. I am not going to do it. What do you want? You've got the building. I do not like the selectmen. I do not like the town. I do not trust them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I am not going to I apologize to you. You know, but I want to tell you, in the past, I think a bunch of women, they can't get along no matter what. But I would have never got into this. I got into this because I was told. It was told at the homecoming game, same thing. We talked to Jerry Major, and the same thing was spoken to him. We've only got till Thursday. We've only got to Thursday. They didn't only have till Thursday. They didn't have to Thursday. My big thing is the people to get their food. To get their food. And that's all I have to say. I just, it was no misunderstanding. It was over and over and over again. And I ended up crying and hanging up. That's what happened.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I want the food bank, for sure.
We do too.
I know you do.
Any other comments from the public? Okay. The next item on the agenda, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, 5.2, transfer station fee review discussion. Edward, where is he? Sit out here so we can see you.
I actually can't believe I couldn't see you back there.
I know I saw you.
Been changed again.
Oh, you updated it? All right, so this is updated from what they've got already?
Already. I got permission to be able to collect money for television and whatnot, so.
So after I march mine all up, before and after, you're
I'm
gonna
gonna give you a nice pretty one now. I'll stand over here, and if you got any questions,
So I guess what I would like you to do is with your new one,
Okay.
is, these are the new ones?
this is what I'm asking for.
Okay, so go down the list.
Okay.
And tell us what it was and what you're asking
Okay.
for.
Mattresses in Box Springs, it was 0.
Okay,
Toilets and sinks.
You say was, currently.
currently,
Currently 0.
okay.
The toilets and sinks, we was taking down back and burying them. Now I'm gonna put in the demo pile, so somebody's gotta pay for the demo. So I put it at $5. Furniture was currently 0. So that covers couches, love seats, stuffed chairs, any type of household furniture.
Bulky stuff.
Right. Then we got a couch with a hideaway bed, I went a little bit more on that because of the mattress that's inside it. Tires 20 inches or less, $3 each. It was $2, but now they got a fee on us from Maine Resource Recovery that they're getting $6 a ton for every ton that goes out, so that throws the fee up more. Then the other by ton is where we have the commercial hauler comes in like Lashins or, I don't want to say, Pinfold, any of them come in, I charge it by the ton instead of by the tire. So that covers us, because we're paying $136 now. This is a new thing, skidder tires and large truck tires, they're charging us $400 a ton to get rid of them now. Demolition and shingles, so now there's any type of house repair, it's the same price, it didn't change. The carpet and vinyl's the same way. Anything with Freon is $0 at this time, and we're paying a guy to come in and it's costing us $12 a piece to do them, and he's taking the air conditioners and draining them for free, but he gets the parts off of them. So, commercial haulers, which is anybody comes in with trash out of the town boxes that is recycled, it's $130 a ton. We've been having, that's the same as it has been. I got a non-recycled trash one, which we've had a lot of problems, you know, with cardboard, whatever, so I added another $20 for that.
That's just the general hopper, right?
Right.
Yep.
Propane tanks, we have a gentleman who comes in, picks them up and hauls them off, but he wants, we was paying $1 a piece, but I went to $5 on that. Then the TVs, computers, printers, monitors, all that stuff, it was $0 at this time, but they just put a $100 fee for every time they come to the transfer station. So we gotta make something to cover that. The big thing is, Almighty Waste, after we had our town meeting and we got all our money approved, they jumped the fee from hauling our trash from $160 to $330. So we have no coverage for that. It's gonna throw us off unless I miss one haul in the week. Our money's gonna be long gone. The demo fees, he went from $160 to $225, and then he has a 10% on whatever the weight is. So if you've got, 6 ton, you've got another 10% on top of that. So we're gonna see ourselves over budget. I got a feeling on a demo in the trash, but we're taking money in too, so it's gonna go in the general fund, wash it somewhere, but it's gonna show me in the minus. So I recommend if we could do these prices and give them a week more, October 18th, and let them go. Right now, the tires, we was giving them 4 free a day. And I mean, we give them 2 years to get everything cleaned up, and if we have some problems, we can go to the code enforcement, they can come and request a waiver to try to clean up all the problems, but I just think it needs to adjust for it.
This is pretty consistent with what you had done before, and what it looked like was that you were trying to cover the cost of the new costs that were being added by these increases. Comments from the selectmen on what Andrew is proposing?
So, let's do it.
This thing needs to be done, guys, it's time. I mean, just like when I come in and told you about the mattresses and I kept track of them. I mean, we had 284 mattresses come in from April to into June. And then that guy come in the next day, so I got 5 mattresses. I said, where they from? Waterford. I said, take them back to Waterford. I mean, it's just.
Is there a second to approve the transfer station prices? For discussion?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I didn't know about everybody else. My biggest concern is now you're gonna start seeing all the stuff on the side of the road again, which we haven't completely avoided, but the people that are dumping them, I went to the dump last weekend and said somebody was there with 8 mattresses. Well, I don't know anybody that's got 8 beds in their house.
They do it all the time.
So they're clearly taking advantage, some are taking advantage.
And then just like the tires too, 3 weeks ago, the ATV club came in with 52 of them from the Payne Road. Somebody dumped inside the road, I mean, they're free. If they'd have come and said, hey, I took them from the AVG club because they cleaned them up for us, but.
Yep.
What I would like to do is try this on a 6-month basis, see where you are at that point. But I would like to see the date moved from October 18th to November
Okay,
1st.
so give them till
That
November
gives
1st.
enough time to notify and put up signs.
Can we have this maybe put in the newspaper too?
And, I mean,
Please.
you're going to have your brochure's going to have to be
Yep,
updated.
that's the way
So
you do it,
that'll
I'll call me.
give
Yep.
time to get the brochure updated and the information out there.
Yep.
Other questions or comments on this? Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of Edward's increase request? Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'll give you this one, just gotta change it to November 1st.
6 months, then we'll go back, right?
Item 5.3, Jordan Road discussion with Highway Foreman Jim Bennett.
So just a quick rundown on this. The Jordan Road is obviously in Oxford, but it's at the other end. It's as though you went through the woods from the Payne Road, right? And then you ended up in Hebron?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's still Oxford once you get.
Right, but it ends in Hebron though.
Correct.
And it's just a small section of road that we've been having to take care of. Hebron right now is nice enough to plow it for us, but we still need to maintain the road, physically maintain the road. And it's in disrepair to the point now that we either need to pave it or make it into gravel. And that's what Jim was gonna talk about.
Yeah, this road's been an issue since, and probably before I came here. You gotta go around Robin Hood's Barn to get there, you gotta go through like 3 different towns for a 600-foot piece of road that we own. We are fortunate, he even plows it, we don't have to travel over there to plow it. It's just been so many years that the pavement and how it's so deteriorated, there's no saving it.
You thinking of grinding it up?
I'm thinking about just ripping it up, graveling it, and grading it 3 times a summer, call it good. That's what I would recommend.
I would actually agree with everything that I've read that you're recommending to do, is that it be taken to gravel, and then you grade it whenever you need it.
Yeah.
I can't see putting the expense in putting a paved road for that small
Yeah,
section.
For 600 feet, and
Yeah.
granted, they're still a resident, but it's one resident.
I think that's the safest way to maintain that road at this point.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, there are some gravelled roads that are maintained a lot better than roads that are,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
partially paved.
The only downfall, like I told you, it's like gonna be like 45 minutes one way with the grader. But it's only gonna be 2 or 3 times per season.
Right?
At one time,
No, I was gonna ask you to
at
explain.
one
that.
time, way back when, we used to have the town of Hebron, used to maintain that for us, and we paid them. Have you contacted anybody in Hebron?
I have not. At this point, I don't believe we're paying even anything to plow it. That may be an option.
At one time, I
can look into
mean,
that.
we probably could check, well, he's not the select person anymore, but Dick Deans used to be, he was there for 30 years, so.
Right. I don't know if you all got it, but I did, actually, previous town manager brought that to my attention to discontinuing or abandoning back in 2010. And at that point, the board had agreed to pursue that, but apparently it never got followed up with because we did not find anything else about it.
No, there was just a short piece on the Hebron end that we kept, we discontinued the rest of that road, right up to Lee Noyce's.
From the Payne Road down.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I call it Lee Noyce's, it's down over the hill, there's a cemetery there.
Yes.
From Payne Corner,
Yes,
and we discontinued.
from
that.
there out. Got it.
So, based on what you just said, Caldy, it might make sense if we took the road back to gravel and did what we needed to
Right.
do, and then approached Hebron and asked them about doing the grading
Right.
every year and paying them to do that, rather than having our equipment drive 45 minutes each way.
Right.
there are a lot of towns that do those types of agreements.
You might be able to get some commercial guy to do it, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Is that grade as steep as it looks in this picture?
Yeah, it's not terrific, no.
I just see a lot of wash out there, so I'm thinking you're, obviously depending on weather.
There is a lot of water.
I think you're gonna be there more than 3 times a year.
Well, I don't think so if it's done properly.
We'll hold you to that.
No, I'm ready.
I would, if that's what the decision is to bring it down, I would suggest we put a good cover of reclaim on it, let it back down.
We could do that if we could find it. I just did quick estimates for gravel and put it down like a 4-inch base of 3-inch minus, and then cap it with 6 inches of really good 3/4 or 1.5 inches. Comes out to like $6,000. I think the estimate, the what I come up with, if we were to just Band-Aid it, and I hate to say it, but grader pave it, it was like 15,000.
Would you be looking at doing that now before winter sets in?
Yeah, so it'll get a chance to freeze up and,
And settle?
yeah. Well, obviously we'll rent a roller and compact it.
Colby, wasn't there was something to do with there was no bridge. And if there was no bridge that connected them together,
We discontinued, it was down by, if you know what I'm talking about, Lee Noyce, the cemetery.
Where
And
was
down,
it?
then there's the brook, there's a bridge there.
yeah,
Well, it's only passable now by 4-wheeler or so much.
right, and,
And then it goes out and then it comes to the end, and that's where
yeah,
he comes in.
but there was, who was the town manager then? Was Michael? No, it was
No,
further
I
back
think
than
it
that.
was Howie.
I think so too, and it was.
You come up with Michael, too.
It did with like.
Yeah, and it, but it's, what?
So when we had to redo that stretch of road from Payne Road down,
Well, it was the cemetery, they said as
Yeah,
long
made
as
it
we did the
passable
cemetery,
To the cemetery because we had
cemetery.
a,
we
veteran.
didn't have to go beyond that, because if the bridge is out, not there, so it's
Right.
not a continuous road. There was somebody looked it up, they really did, because there was somebody from the state, or somebody came and talked to us, way back before you were there, I think. I mean, you may have heard of it, but I mean, you weren't on the board. But I'd call the state and ask them what they, have you?
I have not.
I would
I
call
don't-
and ask what the,
I don't know why the state would have been involved in that.
well, because it was the only one that was like an arbitrator. It was the only one that seemed to have any information that was going to tell us, it's something to do with the bridge.
I
It's
think
the bridge that was the
it
problem.
was an old county road, and what happened
Yeah.
is, it was turned, the county turned them back to the towns, and the towns voted to accept them or
Or
not.
not.
And we didn't, we accepted that road to Paint Corner down over, hill by that cemetery.
Yep,
And then discontinued it from there all the way to Jordan's Road.
yes.
Jordan Road is where
the
they're
other
talking
side
about
of the
now.
bridge,
Right,
yes.
right.
And the whole
So
thing came
there's
up about
nothing.
the bridge, so I don't know. I'd call and ask.
The only
Somebody.
other thing about the bridge is on the Haven Road, down below my place, that they were talking about that, and the state came in, and we did that.
Right, but it was,
The road going into Marshall Pond.
yes, and this goes Marshall Pond too.
This comes out of Marshall.
Well, comes out, I'm sorry, yes. But it's still, it was the bridge that was the issue.
I can't remember that.
So, I don't know.
Remember the gentleman that lives down there, is he,
Alphonse used to live down there, but he doesn't anymore.
yeah, that was down by, but I'm talking in Jordan Road.
Oh, yeah.
Walter
Guy
Dane.
works down in Washington.
He does now?
Well, he
He used to. He
used
doesn't
to.
now, but-
Big guy, one arm.
One out, yeah.
Walter Dane.
He's the
We
one
went,
that,
we went down there one time.
right, he's the one that inherited that from the Jordans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Do you have other discussion on this?
I just think, because more so the ambulance than anything goes over there. We do go over there from time to time, so I'm sure it'd be great to keep it passable. I don't care, I think I agree with Sharon that the best option is if we took it down, you know, put a good coat of gravel base and coat and see if Hebron would maintain the berth. I think that's gonna be cheaper for us in the long run.
Absolutely.
So, there's a lot of wear and tear going back and forth with that grader.
Do we have a motion on that?
Motion
To do the
discuss it.
request of Jim?
So you want it?
I want a motion in a second.
I make a motion that we go in and do as the road
Second.
commissioner,
Okay,
road foreman commissioner.
second.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Good work, Jim.
5.4, town office hours.
So bringing this up now that we're in our new location, we've been, staff and I have been talking about this for a little while. Not looking to make any major drastic changes here. Currently, the town office is open Monday through Wednesday, 8 to 4, and then open on Friday, 8 to 4. But Thursday is the off day and open from 10 to 7. And so Thursday is a 9-hour day while the rest are all 8-hour days. So in short, what we're running into and have been running into is the staff is expected to show up 15 minutes before their shift and then stay 15 minutes after their shift. That's for the opening procedures and then the cash out procedures. So on a normal day, like on a Monday, they get a half-hour unpaid lunch. It works out to an 8-hour workday. On Thursdays, that's a 9-hour day. And so in order to make up the difference, we're having to either get creative with the schedule or there's a need for an hour long or hour and a half long lunch of some sort or longer breaks throughout the day. And so that's kind of what has brought this to the forefront. So with that thought in mind, started really looking at, okay, well, how many customers do we really get in the morning or in the evening on that Thursday? And Wendy's helped me take a look and at how many we're looking at and kind of tried to break that down. In that last hour of the day, our average number of people that we're seeing, on average over the last 3 months, is 2 between the hours of 6 and 7. Yes, there are some days that we're seeing 5 or 6, but there are also some where we're only seeing 1 or none. So my request to the board is if we could please try changing the hours on Thursday so that they are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Then that day is just like any other day in the sense that they get a half-hour unpaid lunch. They come in 15 minutes prior, leave 15 minutes after, and it's the only thing that we're losing is that 6 to 7 evening hour.
Discussion on that, or a motion?
Make a motion, we go with the new schedule.
Okay, discussion.
No way of doing this. I know the office, total number of people in the office splitting shifts, so maybe some come in at 10 and leave at 6, and some come in at 11 and leave at 7, or is that not feasible?
I think that, anything's feasible, but the challenge with that is that if you schedule it so that they're on different schedules, and then say somebody calls out sick, that could create a situation with overtime for counter coverage, which for an hour, I was trying to avoid.
No, I like the numbers that you've gathered. It's dollars and cents wise, it would make sense to close at 6.
The other thing also is like, we have, most of them would be concerned mostly with the new MVR, people that would be coming in for their vehicles who don't make it. We usually have a cutoff time between 20 minutes to a half hour because it takes a lot more time. So really, other than that, it's taxes or someone wants to get married. So.
For me, the thought process is making sure that there's a schedule so that not just one clerk is on at night in the building. When we're here, it's different, but on the other Thursdays, it's not good to have just one clerk.
I wouldn't support just one person being in the building.
We ready to vote on the schedule?
I'm all for it.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
5.5, review, approve the Oxford County Assessors return. Second,
Second.
discussion?
I don't think there's anything you can discuss on that.
All those
Don't wanna
in
pay
favor?
it.
Who motioned, I'm sorry? Call, Scott.
Scott, okay,
And
thank you.
Lloyd. All those in favor? Opposed?
No.
Thank you.
I don't know, did you say when the new hours are gonna start?
Oh,
Just
no,
so
no.
we did not, I think, maybe follow the same theme that we had with Ed. Why don't we stick with the November 1st? I think that would make sense. Does that work for you folks too?
Item 6, department head reports. 6.1, Oxford Recreation Department. Introduction of new recreation director, Kayla Laird, and
Come on up. So, yeah, Kayla's gonna do, just introduce herself, and she's been having lots of fun, lots of energy. I think we're seeing a lot of really positive changes already over at the rec department. She's also got a couple of, just some updates on suggestions on the rec building itself, and a proposal, I think, on how to make it a little bit better with access.
What do you want to start with?
Why don't you say who you are and
All right.
how happy you are to be here?
Thank you. So I am Kayla. I've been doing recreation for 6 years. Very excited to be over here. I live in Harrison with my 3 kids, my husband, and our dog. I have lots of big plans and ideas for Oxford. I've been talking with a lot of individuals and a lot of groups. So I think we're going to see a lot going on. So a lot of support.
so just add too that Kayla was the recreation director in Harrison
Yes.
for that period of time, so she has a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that's been really great is that she's been looking at the rec facility and some potential upgrades, changes, and so forth. And one of the things that we've discussed a great deal is access to the building. It seems like everybody and their uncle has access to that building, and there's 7,000 keys out there. So one of the things that she looked into was doing is it a key card, or it's not a key card, it's a access code?
It's both. So the system is set up so you can have an access card or you can have a code. And the great thing about that is we have a lot of rentals. I don't know if people realize how much we are renting out the rec center, and the previous policy is that we were giving out keys. From what I have found in paperwork, there's probably more than 30 keys that have been made. I've been able to find not even a handful of those. So a lot of people still have them, some groups have them, but then some people just don't return them. I found 3 of them in a shed. So anyone could get them. So when we have someone that rents out the hall, we would be able to give them a one-time code that's only good for their rental time. So instead of just handing off a key to so many people for anyone to come in at any time, they'd be given a code that's only good for their time. I have found a few times in the past month that people do go in the rec hall even when they're not scheduled. It's usually at night. So that's a little concerning. So having the remote access, we'd actually be able to, it would be hardwired onto the doors because we have glass doors. Adam would be able to access it on his phone, on the computer. We could see a log of who's been in, who's been out, and just overall the safety of it is really positive. So.
How much we charge?
I think we were talking about $4,000 for, and what that $4,000 would do is it would put one of those devices on the, did we say the back door?
The front door.
On the front door.
Either one.
Yep. So it would do that to one of the doors, and then the other one would just maintain as a key lock. We would rekey that door, so it was a different key, and then it's $4,000 for this system that she's found. So
What's gonna be there after yearly cost?
I don't think there was an annual cost to that. I think it's just like any manual lock, it's an install, there's no subscription or anything like that, it's,
I think there may be a small subscription
Oh,
if
is
you
there?
wanted to, depending on what pieces of it you wanted. So there's a lot of parts to it.
right, but for the general install and being able to assign codes and turn them off, I didn't remember there was
No, I
a,
think that was all in that cost right there, and that comes with the training as well.
Now it comes a question, where are you gonna find the money?
so that was gonna be the question of the board, is where are we gonna find the money? No, I was gonna suggest that we look at the, maybe the rec subdivision account, which is a reserve account that we have for recreation, or the rec committee account, but I was gonna be leaning towards the rec subdivision account as a suggestion.
How much money do we have in that subdivision account now?
I believe there is over, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it is over 10,000 that's in there. Actually, I should.
Get a likely candidate, then, wouldn't it?
Should have had that in front of me. Apologies, Floyd. So right now, actually, there's 31,000 in the rec subdivision of facilities.
So move.
Second it.
Discussion. All those in favor?
And that was taking it out of that, correct, subdivision?
Yes, subdivision.
All right, so we'll get started on that. Kayla has been instrumental in helping with the food pantry discussion there as far as the electrician piece. She seems to be able to find contractors a lot better than I can. So she's been helping me a lot with that. So we're gonna, as soon as hopefully we can make that happen.
I think
So.
as far as the electrical stuff, we should have it tomorrow. They were trying to have it ready for tonight at 5, but
Didn't make it.
they didn't make it.
Okay.
They were kind of waiting on the HVAC piece of moving the heads over, so hopefully tomorrow we should have all that to submit, so.
All right. Well, we'll touch base tomorrow to get this started then.
So the other thing that was on this, Kayla, is the proposed replacement of the electrical shed at Pismo. So can you tell us where you are with getting that replaced before winter?
Yep, so, the same electrician is giving us a quote on, he suggested, instead of having a whole shed, just kind of making like a backboard, and moving all of the current electrical onto this backboard. Everything is weather resistant, so it wouldn't affect it. My question was, if we leave all the electrical out, anyone can go turn the lights on. But what they can do is they can set it up so it's either locked, we have a code on it, and he can also make it, instead of pulling all the different separate levers, turning it into one, but it would be locked. So the public couldn't just turn on and off the power. The electrical company could actually do all of it. They would be able to build the new board, move all the electrical. I know that we've been a little concerned about space and storage. So looking at some of the shed estimates that we had, they were 5,000 plus. So depending on what we're looking at for a cost from the electrician, I think it'd be more feasible to do the backboard, and then if we needed storage space, to add on to the current power that we have behind the backstop. I still think we'd be cheaper than, just the shed alone was upwards of 6,000. So once we get that quote back, depending on what it looks like, he did say that it could be done before winter. I did have a second electrician reach out today, so we look at a second quote, see their thoughts.
So with Gary sitting right here, because that's something that has been in there for a long time, and Gary's real familiar with the electrical shed where all of the light equipment is to operate the lights. What are your thoughts about just having an electrical panel and not having that in some type of covering?
I don't see any problem with it. You know, that building is used for some storage, but the building is, yeah, I'm amazed that it's still standing.
It's not
Well,
very
it's
safe.
just barely standing,
Yeah.
actually.
Right, so, you
It's falling
know,
apart.
I guess I would be in favor of it. I don't see any problem with having it.
Okay.
as long as they have a way to secure it so that
Mhm.
whoever goes down wants to turn on the lights, they can't, unless they
Right.
have.
Yep. I know one of the
Proper
issues
authorizations.
of having a shed or even a bigger shed is we're then interfering with the French drain and then the cost of moving that and, so there was a lot of cost of, a new shed or whatever it may be. So I think it'd be more cost effective to do kind of that backboard, and then if we need to, expand on the current tower area that we have, then I think we'd still be staying in good.
Well, I think you're cleaning out a lot of what wasn't needed in some of
Mhm.
those buildings down there. That'll make room for what was normally kept in the electrical building
Mhm.
for the coaches. So, okay.
When's the next meeting, maybe?
For this, it sounds like we'll have one tomorrow, so absolutely.
Scott?
I guess my only concern with that is that, maybe either build that up or make a platform. Just, I don't think I wanna be standing in the water that's usually sitting there turning on 220 or 440. Just my opinion.
Well, and I think that makes sense, because one of the reasons
can.
that building is so rotted out on the bottom.
No, the gentleman
because
behind
the
you.
water. Yeah, because of the water that has rotted out the bottom of that building.
So we could definitely suggest putting in a platform.
Yeah, I
Or-
just don't really think you wanna be standing in the water
I
that's
agree.
typically there for that voltage, so.
Okay.
Just-
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully we'll have a quote on
Adam
that
would.
at the
Adam
next
would,
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Item 7, town manager's report.
Alright, so we have a couple things to cover. I'll try and get through these quickly. The first is the new town office. Very, very excited to be here, very excited and thankful to the taxpayers for allowing us to be here. But with that being said, I think some folks have been able to see things as you've come in and what things look like. We pretty much we got the bulk of things done in the building that needed to be done to get us operating in here, but there's still a couple of things that need to be done. One of them is this room. You'll notice a little snuggly in here. I'm working with the contractor on getting an estimate to open this whole end up, as we've discussed some in the past, so that this you would see again on the other side. The hallway would be gone, and it would just be one big large open space that would allow us to obviously do our selectmen's meetings, as well as it would be big enough for voting in here and so forth. So working on that. There's also, right now, there's 2 restrooms that we have on inside of the staff space. There's a space that used to be a shower when the hospital owned it. It's not anything, but the plumbing is still there. So working on getting that made into a staff bathroom that's looking about $3,000 is what I've got for estimates from a plumber. Obviously, you can see we're waiting on the roadside sign. That's on order. It should be coming in any time, so we don't have to rely on our little political size signs that we have out there. Working on moving the cable TV stuff, the broadcast that we had at the old place. The estimate just came in earlier today, and they're quoting $10,000 to move that equipment and set it up here. Installation of the flagpole. We're able to recycle the flagpole from the old town office and bring it up there. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it, so they installed the base already, and it's just where the concrete's got to set for so long before they can put it in there. Painting and repair, the trim. The highway department did a really great job with all the work that you see outside as far as the landscaping and the parking lot and all that stuff. They're the ones that did that. It looks fantastic. But we didn't get to the back of the building, and we discussed us doing that in the spring next year. So on the question of the cable TV, it's really the only piece that I'm having some pause is $10,000. Just feels like a lot of money to move that up here. Now, granted, that would be coming from the new town office fund, that money. But I guess my question to the board is: do you want me to move ahead and actually move that equipment up here for $10,000, or do we want to explore some other options such as recording it, posting it later, do Facebook Live? Do we want to look at other options, or just want me to do this?
Is that from Spectrum moving that, or who's the company?
That is from the company that installed it originally, the vendor that we bought it from. Yep. think I have it here.
We own that.
Connectivity point.
We own that equipment, they don't own it.
Right, we own the equipment.
I think we get somebody in there to look at it, see how it's connected, and
Maybe talk to IT, is that what you're saying? I'll see if I
we
can.
probably could find an IT guy in the back corner. He's hiding.
Big time now. All right. So, all right, that takes care of that. So lots of exciting stuff up here with the new town office. Stepping to the next topic, it's always a fun one, the Welchville Dam. So, Welchville Dam, we had some discussion at the last Selectmen's meeting. As I kind of put in my notes here, a little bit of mixed messages from the board on this, and how we want to move forward with with this. And the project where we're kind of standing right now, we've been working with VHB, which is the engineer, about those grade controls. And it's gone through the MDEP permitting process. There are some more steps to to this process, but we're ready to have the VHB engineer come in and talk to us more about this. But at the last Selectmen's meeting, I got the impression that some board members were not ready to move forward with this project. We did apply for a congressional funding grant, as the board knows, through Senator Collins' office. We were awarded the grant in the Senate, at the from the committee level, but it hasn't gone in front of the whole Senate, because the Senate has to approve the funding for all of those grants. So we have not been, we haven't received any money as of yet, and won't until it's fully approved. But what I'd like to know from the board is, we want to have VHB come and talk about the next phases of this project and those grade controls and what's expected from the DEP permit? Or are we no longer wanting to talk about that approach? I think it would be wise at this point, we've spent the money, might as well have VHB come and talk to us and have a conversation. But before I had him come, I wanted to make sure I'm doing what you guys want.
I mean, we've gone this far with it, and like you say, we've paid for it, correct?
Up to this point, yeah.
Right, I'm not so sure that I really think that's the way to go, but I'm not an engineer either. But we really don't know for sure that we got this other money either, correct?
Right.
I mean, we think we're gonna get it.
We hope so.
So I have great pause on the grant, how it's listed, and reading through the paperwork, page 2/5, number 2 on the top. The brief description is replace the failing dam with an alternative engineered structure and remove the existing dam, which is great, unless that's gonna cost us way more money than, I've heard people talk about cribbing the dam again, which the last time they did it was how many years ago?
25.
And it's held up
30
that
years.
long, so, grant is great, but there's gonna be lots of probably specific things we can and can't do if we go forward with the grant. So I don't wanna buy a $4 million dam if we're only getting an $800,000 grant.
I understand.
I'm not in favor of putting the bark dams in at the end of the lakes, and think it's gonna keep and tear the old dam out. I'm not in favor of that.
Do we have a cost? Did we ever get a cost on total replacement of what it would be?
Yeah, we have 2 or 3 times, but
Right.
it's a lot of money.
It would be changing now anyway,
I
probably.
bet, yeah. Nothing else is the same, so I got a feeling that's probably gone up too.
I feel like in Butch's notes from when I got here, was getting acquainted with this stuff, he had a cost written down that was over $1 million on dam replacement.
Way more.
Yeah, way more.
I think Myron did one for us at one point as well, so.
And as far as the funding, there's no way to know when that would be approved, money would be available to us, or do you know anything about that, Colby?
It'll come up in January.
January? Okay, so we would know after then. So what does the board want to do?
I agree with the board. I think we paid for it, we might as well have him come in and give us an update and what would be our next.
Steps?
Yeah. Should we do that? That's what we want to do.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask if there was other discussion on that and have the motion so that we know specifically what to do next.
I'm not sold on his idea, but I think we paid for it. Once upon a time, we thought it was a good idea, so shouldn't we at least see it through?
I mean, we're 2 years in since we first heard from them, and so again, that's 2 more years that these other towns, the other municipalities that did this kind of work, you could probably brief us on how that's going.
I mean, I don't think anybody actually did any calling around. Didn't you give us, it was at least one place that had it done in Maine.
It was
I don't think we,
2 places.
there were one? I don't, okay. But I mean, I don't think anybody from the board or town manager made any phone calls to see how it worked.
But
I mean, you know,
they could probably provide us an update, and we could reach out to those other towns.
Could verify.
And,
Yeah.
Is there anything saying that this money that Susan Collins got there couldn't be used, providing this other thing was the miracle on, no? It's gotta be a dam moment.
This would have, that's how I read that.
Right.
I wish we had one more dam in this town, don't you?
Well, we accepted it.
I ain't arguing that.
So, is there a motion of what we want to do right now?
Yes, there is.
Okay, so the motion is to
Motion is to just hear the guy out.
have them come back and give an update, and
Right.
then also ask if they have any testimonials that they can provide for us
I
on.
think Scott seconded it.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll see if I can get him scheduled, hopefully at the next meeting. If not, it'll be the following one, but I'll let you guys know.
All those approved? Not approved, okay, thank you.
All right, and then the last gem that I have for you folks is reference to winter sand. So Mr. Tibbetts, who had put a bid in for the sand, has contacted us again about doing an additional 1,000 yards of sand for the cost of $16.50 a yard, and dropping that off at the highway department. I think there was some other that if we did $16.50 a yard for the additional 1,000.
He would wait until next year to get his money.
Yep.
And he would do and he wanted next year. Part of this deal is because we originally asked him for twice as much as we're getting. If you get next year's bid at $16.50, which he did this year's at $17.50.
Which is a big question to me, is why is it $16.50 versus?
I don't know how we even get to be the messenger on this.
So he's saying now that he would want $16.50 next year?
He's saying that if we was arguing, when Jim talked, well, maybe we had 1,000.
Yeah.
And I didn't really say anything that night, but really, if we're gonna get 1,000 on him and he's gonna mix it up and we get down and get it with that price, we're just better off, be a lot cleaner. Cause if you're gonna get down there, he's gonna say you took 2,000 and you're gonna want it to get 1,000. I just think it'd be cleaner that if that's what if we think that and that's a benefit or a safety valve for us, get the other 1,000 yards, put it up there now and be done with that part of it. Whether we go with the rest of the program.
Yeah, but isn't that contingent on him getting next year's bid?
Which I
Yeah.
don't support that.
I know.
I do not support giving him the bid next year. The other thing I am going to just throw out there too is, we only had one bidder this year. I believe because there's no incentive for anybody else to bid, because we're going to just give it to a taxpayer.
I don't think that we've always just gave it to a taxpayer.
I'm not saying that, but last year when it was awarded, there was another vendor who was lower than Richard Tibbetts, and the bid went to Richard Tibbetts because he lived here. So if I was that other bidder, I wouldn't bid this year or any other year, because why should I spend my time to bid if I know I'm not going to get it? That's just my opinion. I think when it comes to something like that, if the pile is in Norway, or if it's in Oxford, or if it's in South Paris, they're all just about the same location. I don't know where their piles are. But I think winter sand needs to be given to the low bidder, whether they are a resident of Paris or Oxford or whatever. And I definitely don't support giving him the bid next year. I think we need to go out to bid next year. And I also think that we require a certain grade, a spec, and I don't know if we've ever tested our grade. Have we ever tested it?
Since I've been here.
To make sure that we're getting what we ask for?
No.
So that's not uncommon to do, that's very common to do. So I could probably support getting the other 1,000 this year, get it with the rest of them, and call it done, and that's it, if we need it.
But I think one of the questions is, if I may, do we need an additional 1,000 yards?
I cannot honestly answer that. It depends on Mother Nature.
Then I would get it, because you don't know. And what's gonna happen is, if we use everything there now, and we only buy the 2,500, and we don't get the other 1,000,
It's gonna be bad.
it's gonna be more, because his sand is gonna be frozen, and it's gonna have to come out of the piles frozen and then mixed with the salt.
My question is, but it was contingent on him getting next year at the 1,650.
No, she's saying pay him what he got.
No,
for
I'm
this
saying,
year.
what I
the
said,
1,750?
I'm saying pay the 1,750, which is what the bid was,
Yep.
get the amount that we asked for. We'll have a stockpile of it if we need it, but if we don't need it, but if we need it, it's gonna be there, and we're not gonna be scrambling around when the sand is frozen this winter, because then he's gonna charge us a lot more. Because they all do.
I agree with that, but no, I don't agree with the 1,650 contingent on next year's.
No, I don't either. So,
The other thing to think about is, if we didn't have it and we did need it, he's not here in the wintertime.
He's in the Dominican.
Yeah.
Exactly. We gotta go down, open up the whole pit, break through the frost.
yep,
We're gonna haul 1,000 yards, I say it's 1,000 yards, but by the time you get the chunks and everything out of the way, he's gonna say, well, it looks so to me like you could go 3,000 yards. That's my concern.
so I think we're better off just
I
getting,
honestly wish I could sit here and tell you,
yeah,
I don't need that 1,000 yards.
there's no
I
way you
honestly
can,
can't
yeah,
tell you that.
there's no way you can tell that.
No, we just bid for the
So I would support buying what we need at the 1,750, and,
Make that motion.
okay,
Second.
discussion further? All those in favor? Okay.
And that's all I have, thank you.
Selectmen items. Any questions or comments on the selectmen?
Oh, I know one, Jim. I noticed cutting back, you did a great job of cutting back the roads and that. And I was thinking, years ago, there used to be only one tractor without a truck pulling in. Can you get a light that bolts onto the hub and goes up and yellow light instead of having a pickup pulling around?
I can't put strobe lights on the tractor.
Right, I just wondered because they did a great job, and I just saw that guy riding, following him all the time with the lights going.
Right, and I understand that, and I just honestly haven't had time to get
Okay,
down.
but I just, that's, well,
Yep, absolutely.
Any other comments?
Can I ask something?
Sure.
And I should have done it back there, but we got into the other thing. On our road, you know where you put the arrows down on the corner where it says 120 and the guy's way out in the field on Robinson Hill?
Yeah,
Well, I came around that corner and I was going slow. There was a school bus stopped at the place that's up on the top of the hill. If that driver, he had all those lights on, he obviously been stopped because a kid was coming off the bus. Never saw that bus. When you come around that corner, you do not see any lights. Now I was going slow, guy behind me practically drove over me. but if there's a school bus stop there, I never saw it before, but I don't know if the kid's getting off or not every day, but if there is, we should be putting a sign up saying school bus stop, so somebody's at least looking for it. I mean, you really could not, I really couldn't believe it, and I didn't know, no place to go. The kid's right there, so you can't go right, and the guy behind me was going left, so. And I never knew, I've seen the bus come up at that time every day, but I've never seen them stop there, or it just hit it, but there should be a sign.
So you could check on that, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The,
No.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Scott.
While you're there, that tree that came down, that took down power
Yes.
here a couple weeks ago is right on the edge of the road as well, so.
Okay.
I was gonna tell Rolly to get out there and move it.
Good.
Yeah, no.
Number nine, sign warrants. 19, 20, 21, 22, 3, 4, 25, 26, 27, and 28.
Yeah, the guy that's following you, he's hoping to solve it, it's bad.
They already approved it, just gotta go around.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah.
Bye, Dakota.
Have a good night, guys. Something I
Just
said.
that one comment.
Just put the elastic back on it, and that way. Hi, Penny. Nice to see you, Penny. Bye. Nice to see you, Len.
Thanks for keeping an eye on Ricky for us.
See you later.
I got the comments cleaned out.
Have a good night, Ed.
Night, Ed.
Yes, I think that's why you're the chair. Chair James, thanks you.
No, I didn't get to talk to her today, but I.
The elastic
her
right
mother is here
All
right
right,
now.
all right, I know you
For some
pulled my
reason.
elastic off.
I didn't pull it off, you pulled it off.
No, I didn't either.
Just like me.
Turn, will you just, pointing that way?
You kept pointing my eyeballs.
Almost supposed to be hit him with it. Almost.
Sorry. I'll try and do better.
To keep an eye on her.
That's true.
Must be the street.
It's got that extra digit.
How did that subdivision money grow so fast?
Business is booming.
And you weren't making with that, that's why. Because I was thinking it was only around 8.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at that.
Well, it wasn't like that the last time I looked at it,
Mm-mm.
that's why.
Must be a lot of building taking place.
Well, he just, Adam just said that it was combined with some other certain accounts.
Working with the auditor, there's a couple of the random rec accounts that were there that, aside from the rec committee account, putting them all together because they were all for the same purposes. So we can change it back if you'd like.
Didn't we sell some property as well for that?
For the subdivision? Well, that's what
We had some properties.
Well, if we had, that's where it would go. we have a motion on the warrants.
So moved. Seconded.
All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item 10, executive session, 10.1, to enter into executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to MRSA Title 1, Chapter 13, Section 405, 6A.
So.
All those in favor? Okay, we're in executive session at
7:39.